Oh, okay. So people figured this out, that this is a problem already, and that's why people are into crypto. It's not just greed. It's not just memes and NFTs and Justin Bieber buying a monkey. It's permissionless money. It's money without borders. It's money without intermediaries. And maybe it is store of value. Maybe it is something else too.
Welcome back to Token Narratives with Bitcoin.com, where we discuss the biggest stories shaping the Bitcoin and cryptoverse. I'm Graham, repping the marketing team for Bitcoin.com, which is, of course, the world's gateway to Bitcoin and beyond. With us, as usual, we have Bitcoin.com news product lead David Sinsel and Bitcoin.com CEO Corbin Fraser. Today, we're talking about Bitcoin and the revolution. We'll be discussing whether the revolutionary spirit of Bitcoin has been replaced by Wall Street bros and the investment thesis. Looking forward to jamming with you guys on that discussion. Today's Token Narratives podcast is sponsored by vCard, the purest Web3 debit card in the cryptoverse. For those who don't know, Bitcoin.com is launching our very own vCard, our very own card, which we are lovingly calling the vCard, because voluntary celibacy is based. The card is launching very soon, and we have limited supply in the first batch, so be sure to get on the wait list, which you can find at verse.bitcoin.com/card. All right, with the intros out of the way, let's get into the juice for this week's show. We're going to start off with usual with our markets gut check. But before we do that, I have a quick follow-up to our discussion last week about the German government selling the Bitcoin it had confiscated. So we didn't know the answer to that question last week when we were discussing that topic, and I have the answer now, which is that the Bitcoin confiscated from the German government was from the operators of Movie 2K, which is a pirated content streaming platform. And the German government was forced to do an emergency sell of that Bitcoin because of a law in Germany which states that if there's a chance the value of seized assets will decrease by 10% or greater, the state must liquidate as soon as possible. So Germany doing law, man. Cool stuff there.
Wild law. I don't get Germany. They fumbled the bag, man. Lost opportunity there.
Do they have a law for government employees to wipe their bottom when they go to the toilet? Is that sanctified also in law? Do they need that? I mean, it just seems crazy that you need to make a law for this kind of thing.
Boo, Germany. To be fair, though, it's kind of funny, though, that they kind of dumped and then they missed that Trump assassination pump. So nice try, Germany. You missed it.
What a nanny state.
So I think we
can
confirm that. Yeah, we can confirm that the German government was not behind the assassination attempt. I think that's what this data tells us.
We can remove them, but I don't know. He can remove all countries.
All right, so I just wanted to bring up this thread here from Miles, something or other name I can't pronounce, but I just thought it had a nice summary of all the bullish points. One, the Germans are done selling. Two, the ETF flows remain strong. Three, we have the politics, the election stuff, right? Trump is Trump and his team, administration, with the VP guy as well. Seems to be pro crypto. We got Trump at the BTC conference in a few weeks. There's probably going to be something quite interesting coming out of that. This was interesting. FTX is repaying $16 billion to its creditors. Now, these are all probably crypto degens, so they're going to be getting some dry powder here, which seems likely that's going to get deployed in the markets. And then we have go ahead.
Well, I guess, is this bullish for any specific crypto? I know FTX was big time. I think they were all in on Sol, were they not? Are they going to have to rebuy some of this Sol to repay creditors, or are they dollarizing the creditor portion?
So the creditors are getting back their money now after, what is it, a year and a half? And
money or coins?
So that money. I
like
believe
fiat?
it's money.
So they're getting
are they like
fiat.
wire transferring fiat, or are they like standing at tables kind of thing?
I believe it's wire transfers of fiat. They're not getting. They're getting
God.
the US dollar amount of
from the time of the collapse.
Yes. So people are not happy
painful.
about that. Yeah. Right.
Brutal.
But it's still $16 billion of dry powder is the point, right?
Well, so then how much of that's going to get re-entered back into the market? Because most of those people are kind of degenerate crypto people, right?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Cool.
Those people are crypto holders. They probably, and then they've just got another bag that they can deploy, right?
I was a small creditor over on FTX. Not a lot, but I guess I'll look forward to my wire transfer. Sam, you cucumber eating bastard.
Yeah. You have a bank account, Corbin?
I got a Canadian bank account still somewhere. Yeah. It's like I'm a very unbanked person with the exception of Canada. They for some reason still bank me.
Yeah. Okay, and then we have the global liquidity cycle. I don't really understand this chart, but it seems like liquidity is about to ramp up, and when that happens,
number go up.
Number go up, right?
Yay!
Who's
okay, yeah.
Is this? This is from Cross Border Capital. Good, nice.
Yeah, I guess for Twitter Spaces people, we're looking at a chart that goes up and then down and then up and then down and then up and then down. And it tracks from years 2000 to 2026. And it seems to be predicting that things go up from now.
Yeah,
according to
Cross
what I'm
Border
seeing.
Capital, they nailed. They've nailed kind of, the rise and fall of equities and oil and stuff for like the past 4 years. They were one of the few people or organizations to do so. So I would pay a lot of attention to what they're saying.
Yeah, a lot of people are talking about the liquidity cycle and how
because of them
aligns with. Yeah. Okay.
They were the first to do that, really. Yeah.
So that's another bullish point. 6 of 10 here that I'm going through. Number 7, the ETFs are about to go live. That's been confirmed. I think the 23rd is what it's supposed to be.
So this one for me, I maybe just jump in. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with Ethereum and say volume and price based on when this starts trading. Because I think there is a lot of rumors still within the wider Bitcoin and crypto space about like, well, what's next after Ethereum? What's the next one to kind of like get in on this action? And will they see upside? So I think if Ethereum does well, then it may be a leading indicator for other potential ETFs as well, where it's like there's now 2 data points of like Bitcoin ETF. That was interesting. And now you've potentially got ETH ETF. And then if that is interesting, then whatever the next one is, whether that's Solana, Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, I don't know what else people might want to take a ETF on, but maybe some interesting upsides.
Yep.
I would
number
add also
8.
that sorry, Graham, but I would add also that if Ethereum pumps, I think it's been lagging, right? Compared
It's been super
to
lagging,
other,
man.
yeah. So if it catches up, it could catch up pretty hard, and then
Yeah.
a lot of people would be caught unawares, or would be caught off sides, which would make it even pump harder, probably, because people are off sides on ETH, at least in CT. It seems like crypto Twitter. Did you guys hear a lot of the chatter coming out of what is it, the big ETH conference that was earlier this week, and how
ETHCC.
ETHCC, yeah, a lot of people were saying that number one, they were getting robbed, but number two, they were saying that the atmosphere amongst these ETH people was pretty negative, right? So again, it seems like during this kind of lull, lower, price hasn't been pumping, and then it's been particularly rough for ETH and ETH people. So,
is this
something to really look for?
There could be a cultural thing in that as well. I mean, like, how do I explain this in my somewhat stupid head? Ethereum people tend to be a little bit more on the wokey side. And I would say that perhaps, I mean, there's been a few studies that have come out regarding, the increased prevalence of depression in liberalism. And if you are a hyper liberal, you are more likely to be a depressing son of a bitch. And if you're extremely right wing and have a family and go to the gym, you're extremely positive and based. And they've proven this now with science. And it does seem like, at least in the Ethereum crowd, there's a lot of, you got Ethereum co-founder Vitalik on Twitter again with a mask on an airplane. It's like, people still do that? What the hell are you doing? And then he's like bragging about he's got 3 vaccines and he's like all in on this stuff. I mean, like, maybe he's talking his bag because he donated so much money to like all the COVID stuff, but it does make me be like, oh man, what am I doing with so much money? I got, Skelly over here, Vitalik, total Skeletor dude, not hitting the gym,
Money
not
skeleton.
being based. And he's just like telling people about his vaccine counts. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy's going to be another victim of the vaccine. He's going to die any second. What's that going to do to my bags?
I actually had the same thought because, and it's fascinating how things have shifted, because last cycle, it was kind of the opposite, right? Like, Bitcoin was dirty. Proof of work was dirty.
The pendulum was swung.
Zeitgeist, right? The zeitgeist was ETH is clean. It's progressive, right? Bitcoin's for dinosaurs, right? It's quite different now. Now ETH is like the woke coin.
Yeah.
and the wokeness is like kind of going out the window.
Yeah.
Probably shouldn't have like rebalanced my portfolio mostly to ETH.
I'm still betting on wokies, man. I got
No, I am betting on ETH. I think ETH has been beaten down and abused, and like everything you say could be true as well. But I'm simply relying on the fact that maybe these emo ETH people have, they've overcompensated, right, or overcorrected for their thing, and there's a lot of like weird emo introspection in the ETH community, right? And again, I feel like once price starts to go up, all of that will be dissipated, and then they'll be back to, we're awesome, ETH is awesome. But anyway, maybe that's when I sell my bags, when that happens.
Okay,
so I have a question, Corbin.
Bullish.
Just sorry, real quick. If you have Bitcoin over here on one side of the spectrum and ETH now being, I guess, kind of woke, where's Solana? Because in my mind, Solana is even more to the right of ETH in terms of wokeness, or left.
I don't think that.
You think Sol's got more wokies, or like that there's even more?
Yeah, at least that was the impression I got. You don't think so, Graham? I guess you're
I think there's enough.
So.
Well, I think there's enough. Like, yeah, there's enough based meme coins that would kind of move it further center to say, Ethereum's lefty kind of culture.
Interesting. Cool.
Yeah.
And I don't know, for some reason with Solana as well, I feel like I get this image of like HFTs, right? High frequency traders, like finance bros who really know their tech, and they're the ones who built Solana, right? With all like they're sending electrons around the world or something. They keep talking about how they're trying to get the block speed at the like whatever, faster than the speed of light or something. And high tech finance bros is what comes to mind when I think of Solana somehow.
Yeah, I don't think they have the like the storage of value, the store of value meme. They don't have the libertarian ideals. They don't have the pure, LARP of we are the most decentralized cryptocurrency. We don't even call ourselves a cryptocurrency because we're Bitcoin. We don't even need to call ourselves a crypto. Like so they'll never be that far on the spectrum where the Bitcoiners, I think, currently live in their, like, say, somewhat right-leaning bubble. But yeah, my take is that they're kind of like high on the innovation scale, but maybe low on the decentralization scale still. But maybe there's a path towards rectifying that.
All right, I'm going to close out the 10 bullish points here from this thread. So number 7 was that the spot ETH ETFs are going live. Number 8, Goldman Sachs is launching 3 tokenization projects. They're getting into RWA. They're going to tokenize everything, right? I guess that's bullish, right?
Have they hinted what chain? And this is why I still bet on Money Skeletor.
Yeah, I think the all the rumors indicate that it's going to be ETH. And like ETH main chain, it won't be like an L2. I think it's just they're gonna go slam it on the main chain.
Yeah. And then, of course, we have rate cuts, which seem to be, I think last I saw for September, it's like everyone's predicting there's 80% chance, I think, of a 25 basis point rate cut in September. So that ties in with the liquidity cycle, I believe. And then the last one, just the markets are forward looking, and I don't really get this last point, but I think he needed something to fill out the 10.
10's a better number than 9.
So I thought that was a good summary, though, of all the bullish, the bullish setup we have here for crypto. So
yeah, I mean, like, I'm still buying, right?
Yeah.
That's if I had more stables, would I be putting them in right now or waiting? I don't know, man. I'm a terrible trader. I'm probably just buying. I'm just gonna throw it in. What else is it gonna do? I could go earn some yield on my stables. Boring.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to our main discussion here this week, which is bringing back the revolution. Why Bitcoin is broken and how to fix it. It's kind of a thesis here. So let me see if I can explain this the way I think about it, and you guys can jump in. So what I'm thinking is that Bitcoin these days is not really attractive to principled newcomers anymore. So what I mean, it stopped attracting true believers, especially in Western countries. And so what I mean by true believers, it's like people who think that Bitcoin is a force of good in the world, and that's why they're buying Bitcoin. I feel like those people aren't really the newcomers. The new waves of those people aren't really coming in right now. Instead, what we're seeing is mercenary investors, like Wall Street types, Of course, we have the ETFs. We have people looking for, like we talk about gold 2.0, store of value. It's a non-correlated asset. All those sort of boring things. It's not really about the revolution anymore.
Well, I would just modify that slightly, Graham. Which is, I think those new people coming in are believers, but they're like they're like you said, they're your Black Rocks, they're your like traditional finance people, and they believe it as a commodity. They're not necessarily looking at any of the revolutionary or like empowering aspects of it, right? So
this may be purely anecdotal, but I do see the normie segment of retail. Like we've talked about this on the show before, that there's the retail bubble, and then there's the institutional bubble, but within the retail bubble, there's the normie bubble, which is like people that just, they're not crypto people. They're maybe not even like tech investors. They're just like checking it out, and I think that you do tend to see in the last little while some of these retail normies coming in being like, yeah, I mean, Bitcoin's cool, it's going to change the world, but it's got to be able to be used as cash again. Like, and they don't have this historical record of the scaling wars and all the bullshit involved in hard forks and stuff like that. They're just thinking like, oh, well, hey, Bitcoin's cool, but the fees are kind of high. But like, I love the idea of decentralized money that's not tied to banks and stuff like that. Like, I think there is still that narrative for folks that are feeling the pinch of inflation, and maybe that'll continue if rates don't get cut, and if things just keep going the way they are with prices going up, groceries going up. You see these poor dudes complaining about going to the grocery store and spending $100 and going home with like enough food for a day, and they're like, this is insane. I think there's going to be some people like that are looking at like, well, why is this happening? And then having that rude awakening of, oh, okay, so people figured this out, that this is a problem already. And that's why people are into crypto. It's not just greed. It's not just memes and NFTs and Justin Bieber buying a monkey. It's permissionless money. It's money without borders. It's money without intermediaries, and maybe it is store of value, maybe it is something else too.
Yeah. I'm not sure what else to say on this topic.
I would add one more thing, which is I probably interrupted you when you were going this way, so I apologize for that. But I feel like you've noticed that, at least in the past couple of years, the people with those strong beliefs of wanting to disrupt the current system, like the people who really, really want to disrupt the system, they all moved to other projects, right? They moved to,
they're not coming to Bitcoin.
A while ago, it was Ethereum. Yeah, they moved to Ethereum. They moved to Solana. They moved to other L1s and L2s and privacy projects like Xano. They moved away, and so you really do have you had like a huge brain drain from Bitcoin, because pretty much everyone realized that it was insufficient, or at least they thought it was. And so I think that's a very important part of this thesis.
Yeah, and I think the Bitcoin community had first movers advantage. Like, had they found a way to support both the store of value and medium of exchange memes at the same time, without sacrificing one for the other, which in my opinion is what they primarily did. When you see people talking about Bitcoin on news, MSNBC and finance, CNN or whatever, they're usually talking about, it's a store of value. They're not talking about it being used for cash or payments or things like that. So that meme kind of won on the Bitcoin side of stuff. And all the people that were thinking about it from a utilitarian standpoint moved on. And now there is sort of like a resurgence of, I don't know, we've been kind of jokingly calling it like a Bitcoin renaissance, where people are kind of coming back into Bitcoin and looking for like, how can we make this thing still useful? And, they're looking at, it might be new devs that are just coming in fresh out of, computer science grad school or whatever, and coming in and being like, oh, like they tried to do it, but it sucked. Lightning, this is not that great. Maybe we can do it better based on the stuff that the ETH bros figured out. And now you're starting to see these different L2s kind of coming out and experimenting there. That's not to say they're all going to be great or hyper decentralized or functional or safe, but the fact that there's enough people coming back in to explore that problem with a fresh set of eyes, I think is kind of cool. I don't know which one's going to stand out in the next year or two as being the one, or any. Maybe there isn't the one, right? Maybe this just becomes kind of like an ETH L2 thing where you've got maybe a few years from now multiple BTC L2s, and then you got people trying to figure out interoperability, and you got people trying to figure out how to, better scale these L2s onto BTC L1. But I think there is still these like limitations on the layer one that will make all of these, I'd say, problems that different teams are trying to solve very difficult to solve. Much more difficult than Ethereum, where at least they're making these progressive upgrades. BTC just doesn't want to. They don't want to touch anything new. They're like, don't touch it. It's not broken.
So in theory, if Bitcoin could fix, let's call it at least two elements, maybe three. One is the fees, if it could make it cheap to transact. And two is the speed. And then probably the third would be the privacy. If it could fix those three things, maybe you could excite people again. It could be revolutionary.
I would add some kind of smart contract functionality. Like you need something.
You need programmable money.
Programmable. Yeah. And that's a big ask, though. I mean that's basically, is it really? You can't do that on the L1 without major changes, right?
Well, and I do see I see the value in the argument of protect the store of value meme, because there aren't other competing projects kind of going after that. Everyone's kind of going after the smart contract meme, the programmable money meme, the medium of exchange meme. There's a lot of competition in those spaces, but very few in the store of value meme. And I think it's because of I would say sort of like the genesis of different cryptos. Bitcoin has the benefit of this very mysterious birth, and other projects are typically not so mysterious. They're VC births, kind of like artificial insemination, IVF, not exactly the most romantic births, but they come into existence and they work. But you know who the people are, and you realize that if you think about it long and hard enough, you could arrest the guy who created it, and you could slow this thing down. Bitcoin doesn't really have that problem. Yeah.
What if people had more things to do with their Bitcoin besides just hold it? Like, what if payments worked with Bitcoin?
I think it could take off again. It's just, it needs sort of a spark in the wider, I don't know, say financial markets. If the US dollar starts getting gobbled up and kind of eaten away from a global reserve standpoint by like BRICS, or if inflation gets completely out of control and people are looking to say, I don't want to hold a lot of like USD, I'd rather just hold Bitcoin, and then when I need to purchase something, I'll just use that. Maybe that becomes kind of like the path towards that. And you see that sort of in some nations where there is hyperinflation, or you tend to see a little bit more adoption of Bitcoin. However, they also just end up using stable coins as well. And there's just
that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, but I wonder if that would change though in the event of this hyperinflation, where like when your stable coins stop buying you as much too, and you're like, maybe I should have just used the Bitcoin.
Yeah, but I mean, if let's imagine that hyperinflation starts to happen, are you really going to want to exit your Bitcoin? I mean, I guess you'd have to pay for some things, but I don't know. I would be holding on to that for dear life.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think this takes us back to a lot of the things that people talked about in like 2015, 2016 related to, Bitcoin scaling, of like, okay, well, why would you spend this thing that potentially has a ton of value? And how do you fix those problems? And, we saw early experiments in like 2016, 2017 of like some wallets were incorporating this idea of spend and replace. So the idea was that, if you have your position is I hold one BTC, and whatever that's worth, you always are like, I just want to keep my one BTC. I'm part of the one BTC club. I finally got it. I did it. And then if you spend 0.01 of it, your job now is to make sure you've got 0.01 worth of, this other currency, whether that's, bolivars or Canadian dollar, loonies or whatever. And then you're going in and buying 0.1 BTC back at the time of purchase with that BTC. So I think there is like, if you're still getting paid in fiat, that becomes one path where it's like, you just have to be kind of strict with yourself, or make sure that the wallets support these mechanisms for the cash use case of spend your Bitcoin or spend your crypto or whatever it is, and top up that amount as you're spending, so that you're kind of maintaining your position.
I also think over time, like 5-10 year horizon, we'll reach a point where I think eventually Bitcoin will kind of find a more stable price, right? And then I think it'll be easier or more palatable to spend it. But it can be a little rough to like look at things like pizza day and then not want to hold on to your Bitcoin. So
yeah,
I think.
But it is interesting though that you got guys like the Laszlo on Bitcoin Pizza Day, who like, there's been some interviews with him. He doesn't like, looking back, he's not like I regret buying pizza that day. I should have just held.
Yeah.
But because I think if you go down that path of like, I should have just held, I would have been smart enough to just hold for another 10 more years, and I would now be a bajillionaire. There's
no
a million, like
enough.
Nobody's smart enough, and even these guys that got wrecked in FTX and other things, like, they can say, "Oh, if I just held my Bitcoin, I definitely would be way more rich now than if I left it with FTX." Maybe, or maybe you would have sold, when it dumped, or maybe you would have lost it some other way, or maybe you would have made some horrible trades. I think like the ifs and buts of what could have been, it's easy to play, and it's kind of like, I don't know, it's very backwards thinking. I think if crypto, like, nobody looks at their Canadian dollar bank account and like, I bought groceries last month for $200, and since then the Canadian dollars totally declined versus the US. I probably would have got a better Forex rate if I would have bought. It's silly. You need money. You need a medium of exchange. So you just kind of use it because it's useful. And I think I think in some ways, like, the meme of storage of value and turning Bitcoin into a commodity has kind of broken people's ability to see Bitcoin and even other cryptos as like, it's just another form of money, because they treat it like a stonk. It's like, this is my Tesla position. I don't want to sell it. I got to keep this thing. It might keep going up. Yeah.
Yep.
Kind of on a related note.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I just one interesting data point that I often think about is like with Bitcoin.com, right? We see our users in Nigeria continue to pump, and most of them can't even really actually buy Bitcoin, just because we don't have like the proper fiat partners there. But
it's even worse than that, because a lot of them don't even have banks that'll like let them. They don't have the ability, like they're not tapped into the rails for that.
And yet we consistently see Nigerian users downloading the wallet app and at like really high numbers. And crypto is kind of illegal these days in Nigeria. Like the government's pretty much trying to stamp it out. So to me, this data point gives me hope that the revolution still is alive with Bitcoin. When shit hits the fan, people want to get this self-custody solution.
I mean,
And,
the most I guess the most optimistic play for Bitcoin hyper adoption or hyper Bitcoinization of the world or something like that is probably tied to accelerationism and just the fast decline to the end. And that might be the thing that helps adoption. That might be, but it's also like comes at the cost of the world's going to fall to shit. And maybe is it the fourth turning? You guys ever read that book?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it's something like that. And I mean, like when you look at the creation of Bitcoin and why it came into existence, it was built on the back of like funny business going on between government and Wall Street, and kind of being like, we need a hedge outside of the system. Yeah, so it does make me think that that's what it's built for. And in some ways, you are seeing it become the thing that it was built for in regions where shit is hitting the fan. Nigeria, kind of in a shit hits the fan moment, right? Venezuela, shit hits the fan. But it is interesting. You still have like other adoption areas too, where like people are using it just out of passionate, community-driven adoption. So there's that too. But I think the shit hits the fan kind of puts the gun in your mouth, you know?
This reminds me, like after the, like in the immediate aftermath of the attempted assassination of Trump, there are all these anecdotes on crypto Twitter and whatnot of people in traditional finance. The first thing that they all looked at was Bitcoin. And the price of Bitcoin, and one of the reasons, of course, is because it's a 24/7 what's it called, commodity, and the other is that it did start pumping, and it was a flight to safety kind of feeling. So it had already had this very natural kind of like, oh shit, stuff's going down. Let me get a piece of something safe. So I thought that was very interesting.
It was pointed out that Bitcoin, this happened on the weekend, of course, the assassination attempt, and as did the SBV bailout thing back last year, and Bitcoin traded in a similar fashion in both of those events. And so the theory is that people thought of it as a flight to safety. However, I don't think I buy that so much. I feel like it's more just when people saw the fist pump, the fight, and Trump's amazing reaction, they're like, yeah, it's guaranteed he's going to win.
Can we just comment on how cool that was? That was like the coolest thing he could have done. It was just
it was amazing.
Peak of cool factor.
I had goosebumps.
Man. Also, so by the way, you know what's crazy is he basically co-opted a move and a gesture that has kind of been owned by the left, in particular by socialists on the left for 20, 30, 40 years, right? That the fist pump is like an iconic leftist meme. And now it's not at all, right? It's completely, it's owned by Trump. If you see anyone for the next 10, 20, 30 years, you're not going to be like, oh, here's famous socialist move or Black Panthers. You're like, oh, that's a Trump thing.
Take note, Christians.
Crazy.
You can still claim back the rainbow.
Pretty wild. What a wild thing.
Yeah.
But fair point, Graham. Fair point. It could just be people speculating on that.
Well, maybe to counter that though, like we've talked about like this idea of like has Bitcoin or crypto decoupled from like traditional markets, and I think that's kind of part of this as well, where maybe it hasn't fully, but maybe the gun in the mouth hasn't been big enough, you know, and maybe we're starting to see in those big gun moments that's where interest moves. And yeah, in a world where I don't know, shit really starts hitting the fan, the gun might become big enough where that kind of starts happening on a more frequent basis. I don't know if we're there yet, though.
All right. We got about 10 minutes left here in the hour. Do you want to move on to show and tell? Does anyone have anything interesting they'd like to share?
Yeah, I have a couple things. If you could, I don't know if we could pull it up, but the first is there's a lot of punditry on the mainstream media and even in crypto Twitter talking about how Trump's presidency is going to affect like macroeconomics and stuff. And a lot of people have been saying like it'll be good for oil, maybe bad for the USD or good for the USD. Michael Cow, he's another one of these people who has nailed macroeconomics for the past 4 or 5 years, specifically oil and USD, and taking contrarian takes on all this too. So he was in the minority and he was right, and he specified beforehand why he was talking about this, and I think he was right for the right reasons. Anyway, he thinks that Trump will be deflationary for oil, as in the price of oil will go down. Now, usually, if the price of oil goes down, it means that I think if I'm getting this right, then the dollar is strengthening, right? So the dollar and the price of oil usually tend to be on opposite sides. He thinks, though, that the price of oil will go down and the USD will weaken. So it's an interesting take, and I'm listening and paying attention to this. Of course, if the USD weakens, this will be amazing for risk assets, right? Stocks and crypto, right? A weakening USD is amazing for this. So, again, something maybe to pay attention to. But I thought it was an interesting read.
Yeah. It's quite complicated.
Yeah, it's a little complicated, and basically, I think the idea is that obviously everyone knows Trump is like pro oil and friendly with oil producing countries, so that kind of explains the weakening of oil, right? He'll take off the stops on producing oil in the U.S. He'll strengthen and open up relationships again with these oil producing countries, and so the supply of oil should increase, which should decrease the price of it. So that makes sense. Now, why would that help weaken the USD? It's tied to some of the other things that he wants to do, I think. Specifically like with Japan and some of these other countries, I believe. And also, I think that some of his advisors believe that it's important for the US for USD to be weaker to make America more competitive. And so I know I'm forgetting something, a big point here. I forgot what it is. But anyway, basically, it looks like this might be his kind of economic platform. Lower oil to deal with inflation, and then a weaker USD. So hopefully, I'm praying that this comes true, because this will be great for crypto. And then I have one more thing to share, just the second one, which is just talking about inflows. This is an ETF traditional finance ETF person, but he's talking about Bitcoin here. And there's been a lot of talk for the past couple months. I'm sure, Graham, you and I listen to the same podcast, and lots of people saying that the institutions are not here. If you look at the data, most of the people. And what is it? There was a Coinbase event last month, and BlackRock CFO or something like that said explicitly that 80% of the people who have bought the BlackRock spot Bitcoin ETF were retail, right? Basically. So you have BlackRock kind of directly telling you that institutions and advisors have not been buying it yet. And then here we have maybe the first signs that they're starting to finally buy. So again, more bullish news. And if true, really, really bullish, right? Because once institutions are not weak-handed, paper-handed losers like retail. So when they buy, they're buying for a long, long time.
All right. I can dig that. Corbin, you have anything to share? I've got one thing which I thought was quite funny, and that is Polymarket's post here on X where they're asking, will Biden outlast the lettuce? This is a prediction market. And the reason I thought that I wanted to share this actually is just that, yeah, Polymarket's killing it with their marketing. This is a really good post.
That's great. Yeah. People coming for the hits. No, I didn't have anything cool to share. So I had Hulk Hogan ripping his shirt on the RNC stage. You know, taking me back to my childhood. Yeah. So I think he recently launched a meme coin on Solana. Wonder how it's doing, based on the shirt rip at the RNC. Hopefully pumping. Maybe we can do a price check on Hogan. Is it Hulk or Hogan? Ah, man. The classics.
Yeah. I had one last comment that I kind of thought of today when I was coming into work, which is like, I was looking at my podcast list and all the news that I haven't read for the past week, and it's just getting longer and longer and longer. And then there's all this, now like political news and stuff. I really feel like I'm getting to the point where maybe for the rest of the year, right? So the remainder of the year, that we're just going to have so much information and so many things happening. It's going to be really hard to keep up. And I guess that's my lame prediction for the rest of the year, but I have a feeling like we're about to like speed up a lot in crypto. And I imagine news and things that are happening in crypto are going to get faster and faster. And then, obviously the election coming up, I feel like that kind of news, real news, is going to speed up too. So I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, like every cycle tends to have this like, there's the crab crawl where everyone's just doing the poke stick meme of, come on, something happened. And this is where you lose people. A lot of people just check out. They're like, I'm done. It's too stressful. They sell their bag. And then a month later, things go a little bit bonkers. But when it starts getting weird, it goes quick and it gets weird quick and it stays weird for longer than you think it's going to until it doesn't. And maybe this cycle repeats some of that as well. But who knows, man? I'm still not totally convinced that like all cycles will just feel like a repeat of the other. There's always going to be these like little weird curveballs, and whether it's new narratives, new things. I think there is this really interesting thing where people are coming back into Bitcoin and into crypto and looking at it from like a cash use case and a utility use case. And there are projects that are focusing all their attention on that, whether that's, the Xano guys or the Bitcoin Cash guys or Litecoin or Polygon or whatever. And now moving, you got sort of the brain, like a resurgence of brain power going back into BTC. And it'll be interesting to see how that group of people fare against the other folks that have been doing this for quite a while longer. And, maybe I think one of the most interesting ideas is the potential that Bitcoin could become not number one. Like, there is this assumption by everyone, Bitcoin is just the king. It's going to stay number one forever. Why wouldn't it, right? It's probably going to be hard to steal that top spot, but it could happen. And I think it could happen quicker than people assume, with the right macro conditions.
Yeah, that would be quite interesting.
Do you remember last cycle? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just not necessarily ideal for the Bitcoin.com domain. But interesting. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, definitely. I remember last cycle people talking a lot about the chances of Ethereum switching market cap places with Bitcoin. Yeah, the flippening, right?
Yeah.
So
that seemed inevitable last cycle. It doesn't really seem that way now. And there doesn't seem to be really a contender at this point.
Yeah.
But as you say, Corbin, things could change quickly. All right, is that the pod? I've always wanted to say that, by the way. Is that the pod?
I've purposely avoided it. You know me and my pet peeves about.
How do you feel about when people say, a berg instead of burger? You like that one?
Oh, I've never heard that.
You never heard that one? I got friends that call them bergs. You want to go for berg?
That's disgusting. But actually, the word podcast and pod has just always triggered me because of its association with Apple.
I think for me, I was reflecting on this about pod actually because I listened to podcasts and they all call it the pod. We live in Japan and they shorten everything here, right? It's just endemic for every single thing. And I've developed a kind of a little hatred for that because it's just like everything: Starbucks, Staba, personal computer, pasakon, smartphones, smaho. So it's so common in Japan that I don't like it, I think. So it's a podcast.
All right. Let's wrap up the pod. Thanks everyone for joining. Yep. Have a great week. See you next time.
Get on that V card whitelist, guys. That's the place. First up, Bitcoin.com. Go get one.
/card. See you later.
See you guys.
VK.